What's going on, everyone? DSP here, and welcome to another edition of the Hateful Truth. Today we're going to talk about a game that was highly anticipated, a game that is a sequel in a trilogy of games, although it may end up being longer than a trilogy after it's all said and done. And it is a rare horror-themed game, and I say it like this because, as you'll see when we talk about it in this playthrough, or this Hateful Truth game review, it's not as much horror as you probably would think. And what I'm talking about is the game F.E.A.R. 3, first-person shooter, and I have mixed feelings about this game, I really do. So let me explain a little bit. I played F.E.A.R. 1 on my PC a long time ago, and unfortunately I never got to finish it. But that game was pretty scary because you had this supernatural girl, Alma, who keeps showing up and she keeps trying to kill you, okay? F.E.A.R. 2, I played on the Xbox 360, and that was actually one of the first full playthroughs I did up on my Dark Side Phil channel originally, back in 2009. And F.E.A.R. 2, I thought, although a lot of the combat of that game was based in killing clone troopers, I thought the game was really scary. There was a lot of monster elements to it. You had Alma still stalking you for the whole game. You think she's trying to kill you. There were all kinds of supernatural beings, ghosts, electricity ghosts and things, and it was a pretty creepy game overall. So, of course, when you pick up F.E.A.R. 3, you're kind of expecting that that's going to be the case. That it's going to continue this whole horror storyline, and, you know, you're going to be scared, and it's going to have all kinds of stuff going on. But, unfortunately, what you're going to find is that this isn't a very scary game at all. They've kind of taken most of the horror elements out of it. There are a couple scares, but really there's not that much of it in the game. So let me explain first of all. This game, F.E.A.R. 3, follows along the story of Alma yet again. This is the third game, and I'm going to try to give, in a nutshell, the summary of what's been going on up to now. It's probably going to be really bad because the story of the F.E.A.R. line of games is extremely convoluted, confusing, and they've even had DLCs that now they're saying the DLCs aren't even officially part of the story anymore, so it could really be a pain in the ass to explain. But here's the gist of the story. There was a scientist who had a girl, his daughter, Alma, and Alma had supernatural powers, okay? So as she grew up, he controlled her. He basically kept her like a lab rat and did experiments on her, all kinds of stuff to her. Eventually, when she hit her 20s, he impregnated her, and she ended up having twin sons. The twin sons, incidentally, end up being the two protagonists of this game, F.E.A.R. and Point Man. Okay? These are Alma's sons. When Alma got to about her mid-20s, her father actually ended up murdering her because she was becoming too powerful. She had these crazy psychic powers, and she was using them to kill people, to control people, so he thought she was too powerful, and he killed her. But what ended up happening was, she actually got even more powerful after death. She became a supernatural being, a spirit per se. And so, throughout this series of F.E.A.R., there have been different companies trying to control Alma, trying to, you know, make her be under their control so they could use her powers for their own good, and it hasn't worked out too well. Basically, Alma keeps escaping and breaking out. Her psychic powers have all kinds of crazy effects on the city and the people around her, whether it's creating craters, making people go nuts, creating supernatural monsters that are attacking everyone. She's really fucking powerful. And so, the premise of this game is basically, it follows along the plotlines of F.E.A.R. 1 and 2. Now, in F.E.A.R. 1, you played as Point Man, and you didn't know that you even had a brother. And you were part of a SWAT team, or I don't want to say SWAT team, a special team sent to try to eliminate Alma. And at the same time, you were fighting your brother F.E.A.R., who was a powerful psychic, and he was using his psychic abilities to control troops and clone soldiers and causing havoc. So the most chunk of that game of part 1, you're fighting F.E.A.R., you're fighting clone troops, at the end you finally get to Alma, okay? What ends up happening is there's a reactor explosion, and you do that to try to kill Alma, basically. You end up kill F.E.A.R., you shoot him right in the fucking forehead, which is why he has a bullet wound in his forehead in this game. And so you do kill F.E.A.R., and during this explosion, Alma actually escapes. She isn't destroyed, because she's already a supernatural being. She's already dead. Of course, an explosion's probably not going to stop her. Now, in F.E.A.R. 2, you play the role of someone completely different. His name is Beckett. And you're also a security team sent in at the same time that Point Man was trying to take out F.E.A.R. and Alma, but you're trying to extract a high-up person in a company who has like an investment in Alma. And so you try to save this president or vice president, I forget what her ranking was, and while you're doing that, you rescue her. Then you find out that you're actually a test subject of hers, that she's been doing experiments on you, just like she was doing, or just like the doctor was doing experiments on Alma, and now you have supernatural powers, supposedly. And the whole general plot of F.E.A.R 2 is that you're trying to find out what the hell's going on, why were you experimented on, where is Alma, who is Alma, what's really happening, and by the end of the game you end up running into Alma, and if you can believe it, the end of F.E.A.R 2, Alma has sex with you and becomes pregnant. She actually rapes your character. How this is possible, because Alma's dead, I have no fucking clue. And it also kind of like shocked everyone, because at that point, Alma was always showing up as a little girl, and then all of a sudden you realize, wow, she's actually a woman in her 20s who was murdered, so she could have kids. So it's just really a mind fuck, okay? Now F.E.A.R 3 picks up, continuing directly after the end of F.E.A.R 2. What's happened is that Point Man is actually incarcerated. He's been captured by the company who was actually, doing these experiments on Alma. And so they're keeping him hostage. He finds out that he is, the son of Alma, and that he has these amazing reflexes and powers in combat. Well, his brother F.E.A.R comes back from the dead, and if you didn't play a certain DLC for F.E.A.R 1, you would have absolutely no fucking clue how that's possible, but apparently there was a DLC where F.E.A.R somehow, just like Alma, even though his physical body is dead, he's able to come back from the dead because he's such a psychically powerful being, okay? And so the plot of F.E.A.R 3 is that Point Man finds out from a former teammate from F.E.A.R 1 that Alma is pregnant, and so his goal is he's teaming up with his brother F.E.A.R, and they're trying to get to Alma, who again is somehow incarcerated somewhere, even though you don't understand how that's happened. Maybe she's still trapped after the end of F.E.A.R 2, that's probably more likely what it is. And the whole plot is they're trying to get to her and stop the baby from being born, because they feel this baby will be far too powerful and it'll be an evil entity. The whole plot line of this president from F.E.A.R 2 who had put superpowers into Beckett completely gets thrown out the window. That character's not even in the game. So I don't even understand why that was done or how they threw it out, okay? So I know that's confusing as fuck. But anyway, the game starts out, Point Man gets broken out of jail with the help of F.E.A.R, and now you're going through several different settings, which are pretty neat actually, some of these set pieces that they kind of set up. You actually end up at like a Costco/Walmart, and you're fighting there, and all the townspeople have gone crazy. They're like insane cultist zombies worshipping Alma, so you have to fight them in that setting. There's a set where you're on a suburban town on the outskirts of the facility where the Alma's being held. You're on a bridge that goes across a river, and you're trying to get to where Alma's being held that way. And then there's the really neat stage is the airport stage. It's a really cool reproduction of an airport. If you've ever been in an airport, everything looks realistic inside. It's a really neat stage, and I really enjoyed it. So in that respect, I think the game shines. The actual design of the levels is really nice. The gameplay varies greatly depending on how you play the game. If you're playing it single player, you will be forced to use Point Man. And Point Man is a very generic FPS kind of a guy. He picks up weapons as he goes along, he can throw grenades. His special ability is to slow time. So if you're getting overwhelmed, you slow time temporarily, you can go and kill multiple guys during that, and more than likely you're going to be fine. So very typical FPS gameplay, nothing really new or groundbreaking here if you're playing the single player campaign as Point Man. Once you beat the game with Point Man in the single player campaign, you unlock F.E.A.R. And F.E.A.R is dramatically different from Point Man. He's got psychic abilities. He can lift and psychically hold soldiers, and then he can decide if he wants to kill them with a melee attack where he makes them fucking explode, or he can hit them with psychic wave energy so you can actually attack from a distance, or he can actually choose to possess that person and you actually absorb the essence of that person and become them temporarily. So you get whatever weapon they were holding, you get their strengths or whatever. So if you end up fighting like one of the harder troops in this game who has like a really good weapon, you can possess them and get that weapon and become really powerful for a limited period of time until your psychic energy depletes, and then you have to wait a certain period of time to do that again. So F.E.A.R's gameplay in comparison to Point Man, so much better, very unique. You don't usually play an FPS game where you get those kinds of crazy abilities. I really enjoyed F.E.A.R's playthrough. I think that playing with Point Man is kind of boring and repetitive because it's just more of the same. Now, really, I feel that the way that this game is meant to be played is cooperatively. You have to have a friend, have them sit on the couch next to you, play the game in split screen. You're going to enjoy it a lot. I did this with John Rambo. I probably liked the co-op playthrough with John Rambo more than twice as much as I enjoyed playing the game by myself with Point Man. It's just that much more fun, because now you have the ability to do combination attacks, which is really where this game shines. I can lift someone up while I'm Fettel, I can pick someone up while Point Man is shooting him, and you can do a combination kill. If Point Man is getting fucked up, Fettel actually can use a psychic power to give him armor. So now he's getting shot and he's not getting damage. He actually has full health because you're giving him armor to absorb the damage that he's taking. Flipping that over, when Point Man uses slow motion, Fettel also gets the same benefits as Point Man. So he sees everything in slow motion, and he can now take the advantage of what's going on there as well. The co-op playthrough is not any different, story-wise. The same stuff happens, but the interesting thing to note is that this game has multiple endings. And there's a Fettel ending, and there's a Point Man ending. And depending on who actually plays the game better and gets more points over the course of your co-op playthrough, you're going to get that appropriate ending. So when I played co-op with John Rambo, since I played the game before, I was getting more points than him, and when I beat the game, I got Fettel's ending instead of the Point Man ending I'd already gotten. Both endings are interesting. Both endings could lead into a fourth game. I'm not going to spoil them, but both of them are pretty cool. So it is worth it to play the game and try to see both endings. It's a lot of fun. That being said, the whole F.E.A.R line of games up to now has been about scares. First game, Alma's showing up out of nowhere left and right, attacking you. She's real scary looking. There's your scary clone troops. You've got Fettel, and he's a fucking crazy looking dude. There's monsters and things showing up trying to kill you. It's pretty scary, okay? The whole atmosphere of the game is very scary. F.E.A.R 2, not as scary as F.E.A.R 1, but there's still a lot of monsters. Like I said, there's supernatural electricity monsters that attack you. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Alma's still coming after you constantly, and you don't understand what's going on. And it's still pretty scary. This game is not even close to being scary, alright? Whenever Alma shows up, she doesn't try to hurt you. She just shows up and you see her and then she goes away. Nothing scary happens whatsoever when Alma's around. So it's just like, oh, hi Alma. And then you just keep playing the game. It's pretty weird. They've also limited the amount of supernatural enemies. In the first and second game, there were way more monsters and ghosts and things that you were fighting. In this game, there's really only one or two kinds of supernatural enemy, including one enemy that's a recurring enemy that ends up being a boss later on. So, really, this game is not scary at all. I mean, they try, there's blood. Oh no, there's blood splattered on the walls. And then they try, you'll see, ooh, there's a supernatural crib for a baby that's rocking itself. And, you know what I mean? Like, the essence of the first two games isn't there anymore. That suspense, that thrilling feeling that you got, that tingling feeling every time that you saw Alma, you don't have that anymore because she's not trying to kill you. And it's even unclear if she's even bad in this game. So it really is kind of like losing its horror feeling, and it's kind of a shame because the first two games I really thought were spooky, were creepy, were scary. This game is not. This game is more of just it's a really decent cooperative shooter, FPS game. But outside of that, it really has lost its edge, and that's a shame because this series was one of the best. It was pretty much the best, horror FPS game ever made, and now they're really starting to lose it, and that kind of sucks. I would love to tell you about the online play of F.E.A.R 3. I would, and the reason I say that is because it was actually when I was reading about it in magazines, and apparently there's a lot of exclusive, interesting modes of the multiplayer. That are not in other FPS games, including the one that's called Fucking Run. That's actually the name of the game mode. And the premise of that is that there's contractions that Alma's having as she's pregnant, and it creates a wall of psychic energy that's coming at you, and if it touches you, you die. So you're basically trying to run and survive while this wall of energy is trying to kill you, and there's enemies coming at you at the same time. That's pretty unique and interesting to me. One small problem. I tried to play the online play of this game 3 times, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm not trying to be over dramatic. 3 times I had some downtime and I said I want to try the F.E.A.R 3 multiplayer, and I put it into my Xbox and I went into matchmaking and I couldn't find a match. Now, it wasn't immediately after the game was released. It was probably about 3 weeks after this game was new. So I do apologize in that respect. There were a lot of games coming out in June when this game was released, so I didn't have an opportunity to play the online play until a couple weeks later. But every time I've tried, I just can't find a match. I did connect once to a match, and it was very laggy, and it was just not a good match. I had to leave, and after that, I just can't find matches. I literally left my Xbox out for 15 minutes and couldn't get into matches. So it sucks, but from my experience, one of two things could be happening. Either the matchmaking of this game is piss poor, which could be possible, okay? I don't know, because there's no way I could tell from what happened if that's the truth. The other thing that could happen is maybe no one's playing the online play anymore. And that unfortunately happens when there is so many games on the market these days. A game like this could maybe be played for a week or two and then get overlooked by something else. And considering the amount of games that came out during the same month that this game came out, I think that's a very strong possibility of what happened. Probably people who had this game tried it, oh, it's neat, whatever, and then they just stopped playing it online altogether. So I can't rate this game at all based off of the online multiplayer. If I had a chance to play it, maybe I could add to the score of this game. The problem is I can't play it. I've tried 3 times and it just won't connect. And I've seen other people say the same thing online, that they just can't get into games. They don't know what's going on. Maybe the matchmaking is shit, or maybe no one's playing anymore. I don't know. But unfortunately, I can't hurt the score because of that, but I can't help the score either. You know what I mean? I can't give it a better score because of that. So for what I played, the single-player campaign, that was pretty lackluster and generic FPS, but then comparing that with the excellent gameplay of the co-op campaign, but also factoring in the fact that, unfortunately, the scares are pretty much gone from this game. I gotta be honest, and as you know, my Hateful Truth rating system is very honest. It's a scale of 1 to 10, and it's an honest answer. So if I give a game a 5, it is very average. If I give a game a 10, it's the best game ever made. I rarely give games higher than like an 8. So I'm going to give F.E.A.R 3 a 6.75. Yeah, I know that does sound low, but it's really not that much of a game. The single-player campaign is a 5. The single-player campaign is boring, repetitive, not scary, and generic FPS gameplay. The only thing that helped the score of this game was that the co-op gameplay was exceptional, and I actually kind of wish I had played the game first on co-op. I really do, because that's where the game shines. If I was able to get onto the online multiplayer, I might have given this game a higher score, but it's not my fault that for whatever reason the matchmaking isn't working and I can't get into it. So F.E.A.R 3, a little bit of a disappointment for me. I wish the campaign were better and scarier, and it wasn't, so I give it a 6.75. Alright, so that's it for the Hateful Truth for F.E.A.R 3. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you later for future game reviews. Thanks.